Hello, and welcome to another episode of Autism Family Life, bringing you all things autism, family, and life in 30 minutes or less. In today's episode, I want to talk to you more about kind of my own experience with the autism diagnosis. And in our last episode, I went through, like the initial reactions and the lies that I used to tell myself regarding my daughter's autism. Today, like I said, I want to follow up on that and talk to you about the mom guilt that came with the autism diagnosis. Now, as I said before, um, I am, when I was a child, I was a very emotionally sensitive person. I'm still a pretty emotionally sensitive person. And because of that, I take things, even though I know I shouldn't, sometimes I do have a tendency to take things pretty personally. Um, and after my daughter was diagnosed, I took her diagnosis pretty personally as well. And I found myself dealing with quite a bit of guilt. Um, yeah, guilt. Uh, you know, there were some things that I was kind of expecting to feel after the diagnosis. Um, I felt very helpless. I felt pretty lost. I felt kind of empty. I started feeling disconnected with my daughter. I started questioning a lot of things, and I started to feel like a failure. And I started to feel like I had somehow failed my daughter. And because of that, I felt so much guilt over her diagnosis. Um, and it was just one of those things, looking back, I wish I could say, I wish I could say that I should know that I shouldn't have been blaming myself. Um, but at the time, I really couldn't help it. And so I wasn't just sad about it anymore. I wasn't just angry about it anymore, but I felt guilty about it because, I was the one who was pregnant with her. And so it felt, like I had to have had something to do with it. So then I had to wonder if other parents were also feeling this way about their children's autism. Because in the past, it was like 1950s, there used to be this theory called like the refrigerator mom, that because mom was cold and cut off, it was her fault that her child had autism. Of course, we know that this has been disproven. But now I can't help but wonder if I'm the only mom who feels that they may have had, like a direct cause to their child's diagnosis. Um, Whether or not that's actually true remains to be seen. You know, outside of it being like a genetic thing, um, because there are, like the research is out there, not quite as extensively I think as it could be, into genetic causes of autism. Anyway, but that has nothing to do with this particular guilt. It's more of the self blame. And really, that's what it was all about for me, was looking for someone to blame. And because it didn't feel right blaming God, it didn't feel right blaming my daughter, I became the easiest target. And once I had someone to blame, I think that was also part of my coping process. It wasn't very healthy, and I have to, kind of advise against it if that's something that you start going through as well. And, this is one of those things that I just want you to be aware of and to kind of just know that it's not your fault and to stop blaming yourself for it. Now, I know too that one of the other speculations with causes on the autism diagnosis, um, it's also going to be vaccines. And I really don't want to get into it just because it's always going to be such a hot button issue. Not that I don't want to explore these things or open the dialogue for them, but I just think that our time could be so much better spent on other things. Um, but so some of the current research right now that goes into finding the causes on autism. And some of the things that have been found out are, the type and quality of the maternal care during pregnancy, parental age, and, different environmental toxins. But that's neither here or there. That's for a whole different discussion, whole different episode. This was about um, guilt and the autism diagnosis. So, as I've already said, I put a lot of blame on myself. And because I was putting a lot of blame on myself, um, it was to divert, other unhealthy methods of coping and dealing, which we've probably already established. I was not taking this very well. Um, and so I was pointing fingers, trying to look for someone or something to blame, and eventually it came back to myself. So I want you, if you are in the same place of guilt and self-blaming, I want you to, you know, go take a look in the mirror when you can and tell yourself that it's not your fault. Um, because I need you to know this, and I need you to tell yourself this. And even if you don't believe it, then I'm going to tell you once again, it is not your fault. Um, period. Bottom line, it's not your fault. And grant yourself the grace to maybe wallow a little bit, but then, go pick yourself up and forgive yourself. Start the healing process with yourself. And you need to silence this inner critic, because unless you can silence that inner critic and, kind of reconcile yourself, then it's just going to keep coming up. It's just going to keep rearing its ugly head, and it's not going to get any better. Um, and I tell you this from experience. It's not going to get any better, and it's going to make you feel worse, and it's going to compromise a whole bunch of other things. So just forgive yourself, grant yourself the grace that you are a human being and that you're going to make mistakes. Um, and acknowledge that, yes, in the future, it's probably going to pop back up again, hopefully not quite as bad as it was before. And once again, that all starts with you and forgiving yourself and granting yourself the grace that, you know, it's not your fault. Um, so stop blaming yourself for it and stop pointing fingers at yourself for it. Stop beating yourself up over this, because you need to hear it and you need to know it. And furthermore, though, you need to believe it. Um, and again, I tell you this with all the wisdom and sage advice from someone who has been there and who is still kind of going through it, because it's something that I still, on occasion struggle with myself. But it was only recently that I came to realize all of that. So if I can help you at the beginning of this diagnosis process kind of avoid all of this emotional turmoil and mental self-deprecation that I went through, then I will feel all that much more, I don't want to say accomplished, but I will feel all that much better about the situation. Um, not that, just so you can learn from the things that I've gone through and hopefully avoid the things that I had to go through. Am I going to say that you're going to avoid them completely? Probably not. But at least, this way you have a heads up and you're a little bit more prepared. So, on that note, I am going to give this episode its closing, and I will talk to you again soon. I hope you have an amazing day.